Hello, in this third video we're going to continue with the previous example that we were running database analysis, but in this time we're going to be calculating the total number of minutes viewed per different activities and platforms and devices, and how we can calculate the different shares. So what is the percentage of viewing for a particular channel that is allocated to, for example, live viewing of Vostal or video on demand. Okay. So as we did before, we're going to start with a clean template. In this case, I am going to go and directly select the groups that I mentioned in previous videos. So these are created by me, combining linear and non-linear channels and based on the ownership of each one of the channels. So NOS, TV2 Group, Viasat, SBS. And I'm going to be looking at the database report, but instead of directly going into the reports and selecting it, I'm going to go to units and I'm going to start looking at the T-mins. So this is a total number of minutes, because I don't really want to see at this particular stage ratings or standard shares. I want to start looking at the total number of minutes that people are viewing. Okay, so after selecting this one, go to the database analysis. And finally, we go to the selection of activities. So in this case, remember, you can have a choice of processing things based on the traditional way, which is based on broadcast data time, or on the new way, which is on the viewing date time. It could work either way, but I'm going to be, just for the sake of doing something different, I'm going to be focusing on the new way to do things. So I'm going to be looking at live, and then everything that people do at the time in which they're viewing. So I'm going to be looking at PV Vostal, view time, PV, so playback as VOD, and finally VOD. Okay, these are the typical activities that again are based on viewing time and dates. So after doing this, I don't care too much about the date, so I'm going to be running everything on the last date and on the whole day. So I'm going to be calculating this analysis and changing a bit the layouts. So as I did before, I'm going to be putting the channels here, and I'm going to be putting now the activities here. So as you can see, we have now the different channels of group of channels as rows, and I can see how many minutes in thousands are being viewed on live, on Vostal view time. So this is again recording on one day, played back on the same day, but the viewing when they were viewed. PV199 is recorded material on previous days, but they were actually viewed on this last day. And then finally video on demand. So again, streaming a content that people watched on the day that I selected. Okay, this is a pretty simple one, and in some way we covered it before. But if I wanted to try to understand what is the proportion of each one of them, I could obviously export this to Excel and do a very quick calculation. But we're going to be adding a few what we call custom metrics in the system, so you can also calculate things directly within Instar Analytics. So let me go back now to the template, and I'll go under units. So it's a new number of units that we created under advanced. Again, this is going to be made available in version 4.8, not on 4.5 or 6 or 7, 4.8. And each one of them is based on a different dimension. So as I've selected activities, I'm going to be looking at share of activities. Okay, this is based on a fairly complex metric that we designed a while ago, which is called an operational unit. But I've already set it up in such a way that you don't need to do anything else, just select it. But the way it works is that it calculates the different percentages based on a reference, which is a total, and has to be the first one calculated. So in this particular analysis that we saw that we have live, PV Vostal, playback, and VOD, I need to get a total in the first column. And we have that total. So under activities, again under viewing daytime, I have something called a consolidated as VOD. this consolidated basically shows the addition of all the viewing done on live and then everything done on the date in which it's viewed. So I'm going to be selecting this one as well, but I'm going to be placing it in the first position. This is how this particular unit works. All of the different units are calculated based on the first one. So having done this, I recalculate. I have now, again, the total number of minutes, but if I now navigate, this is saying that for all the channels that are under Norsk group, of course, 100% of the viewing is for consolidated, but this means that 80% of all the minutes viewed on that particular day, for the entire day, for the Norsk group of channels, were done live. 4.4% were done on Vostal, so again, recording and playback on the same day. 3.7 were people that played back Norsk recorded material in previous day. They were recording previous day, but they were played back on that particular day. This is when they actually was viewed. And then 11.9% of all the viewing on Norsk channels were coming from video on demand, so from streaming services, people watching particular content. And the same thing obviously can be seen with the different groups on TV2, Viasat, on SBS. Of course, we could just put everything together. So if you wanted, you can start looking at the different units plus the shares. We can add color if you want, and you can start looking again the number of minutes on Vostal and what it represents for each of the channels or channel groups, the number of minutes on playback. Remember that this playback is when it was viewed, watched, and what is the activity. In a very similar way, you can work with the other dimensions. So what I'm going to be doing here is just to change this. So we're going to be continuing running a consolidated figure, but I'm going to be using the consolidated figure with video on demand. And I'm going to be looking at the device, for example. So I will start looking at all screens, which is the combined ones, in the first position, and then TV, PCs, tablets, smartphones. Let's leave the other ones without reporting. I'm really interested in this one. And what I will do is start looking at the units, and instead of using the share activities, since I'm using device, I'm going to be changing it to share device. Okay, that's all I need. So if I now recalculate, I have now the all screens, but I'm going to be putting this in here. So I can start looking at all screens, which is 100%. On TV sets for the Norsk channels, we have an 88%. On PC Max, we have a 2.3%, and this is number of minutes. And in tablet is a 2% with this number of minutes, and so on. We can take the units out if you want to be a bit clearer. So this again is the number of minutes that people are viewing on each one of the devices for each one of the groups. And again, remember that in each one of these groups, I defined the linear together with the online channels. And if you navigate to the second one, which is the share, you can see obviously all screens represent 100% of all the viewing. And in this particular case, TV2 is 89.5% viewing on TV sets, 1.4% viewed on PC Max, 0.6% viewed on tablets, 0.3% viewed on smartphones. If for any reason you wanted to start looking at the composition of these three devices, but only focused on video on demand, the only thing you need to do is when you selected the activities, instead of using the consolidated, you can now start looking at both. So now based only on video on demand, you can see what is the viewing that you have on each one of them. Still, you have video on demand viewing on TV sets, but you can see, for example, for Discovery, 99.6% on that particular day were done on PCs and Macs, 0.4% on tablets. If you look at Viasat, 17.7% were done on TV sets, 50.3% on PCs Macs, 14.4% on tablets and smartphones, etc., etc. Same thing can be done, of course, with the other dimensions, which are location and platform, simply by selecting the relevant share ones. So just remember, and the same thing applies with every time you run an analysis, you have to be careful with your selection of channels and how you combine them with the different activities, because you have linear channels and non-linear channels, and you have linear activities and non-linear activities. You have to make a decision whether under activities you want to look at the viewing on the traditional way, which is the broadcast time, or the viewing time, which is a new one, and then simply select these new units. We are going to be creating what we call presets, so they're predefined analysis for users to just simply decide which channels they want to run and for which dates or for which target groups. But the definition and the design of the analysis is already there for you, so you don't have to think too much. Once you become more familiarized with all the extra complexity and also with the richness that this new service is adding, then you can obviously do your own, but at least you have this as a guide. So you're going to be seeing them when we create them under presets. They're going to be shown in here, and in a separate video I'm going to explain exactly what a preset does, what are the advantages, and which are some of the ones that we have already created for you.